Fighting games tend to have a reputation in lacking in single-player content. And even now, after being well into the 8th console generation for fighting games, that seems to be the case, with few exceptions. One of them being Mortal Kombat, developed by NetherRealm Studios. However, I'd like to point out a series named BlazBlue, developed by Arc System Works, a company who was once known primarily for the niche Guilty Gear series, but took the world by storm with their game Dragon Ball FighterZ. And I'm here to tell you why I personally think, when it comes to single player content, BlazBlue is one of the best. Though I'll primarily be focusing on BlazBlue Central Fiction, which is the latest mainline title in the series, many of the points I make here will apply to the older titles as well. I'll also give a brief summary for what the games are about for those unfamiliar with the series. So with all that said, let's get into it. In terms of the game's presentation, everything is fine-tuned and polished, and it's evident that the developers spent a ridiculous amount of time making everything in this game shine, from the highly decorated menus, characters, and portraits, with each character design being visually distinct from one another, with each character having a unique build and color theme, all wrapped up by an extremely dynamic pose. And this isn't just noticeable with the portraits of the game either. Oh no, with the characters themselves being made up of hundreds of sprites in order to help the game look like an anime, which, combined with the 3D backgrounds, give the game a look that will be the foundation that other sprites-based fighters made by Arc System Works would have. The fighting engine of BlazBlue itself has seen some significant changes in its system mechanics throughout most of the games in the series. However, many of the core system mechanics remain the same. BlazBlue is a 4-button fighter that uses number notation similar to other air dashers. A for weak attack, B for medium attack, C for strong attack, and D for drive attack. And that last button is linked to a mechanic that I feel separates it from every other fighter. To put it simply, the drive system is a set of special moves with properties unique only to that character. For example, Jin's drive, which is called Frostbite, allows him to freeze the opponent on hit. When they are frozen, they are unable to take any action for a short period of time. Since they are unable to block in this state, this allows him to continue the assault. Rachel's drive, known as Sylphide, allows her to use wind abilities, effectively controlling the pacing of a match. For example, pressing up during her jump will increase her jump height, allowing her to get out of dangerous situations. Relius's drive ability, called Detonator, allows him to summon a puppet to fight by his side. This puppet can attack the opponent from multiple positions, attacking them from the front, from behind, and from above. And hopefully by me explaining these few examples, I've given you enough of an idea of the impact this mechanic can have. And with over 33 characters, most of which being completely unique from one another, with their own drive abilities, special moves, walk and run speeds, and the startup of their attacks, and you're looking at one of the most unique fighting games out there. Though one of the things you'll notice when booting up these games is the plethora of modes to choose from.
Make you regret this. Idea engine light! Let the darkness show you! Witness my
Tutorial mode gives you a general overview of the game's mechanics, which is broken up primarily into three main categories: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. These three categories are further broken up into subsequent categories based on their learning curve. For example, beginner goes over the general rules, including movement, attacks, and defense. And honestly, what impressed me the most about this tutorial is the amount of detail given in each section. For example, movement shows what options you can do on the ground and in the air. Giving examples of options you can do on the ground, such as moving forward, backwards, dashing, and crouching. In terms of air movement, you can do a regular jump, double jump, air dash forward, and backwards. Each of these movement options are to be used in specific situations, and the game does a pretty good job of explaining what those situations are for. And this applies to the other sections of the tutorial as well, from the tutorial making a distinction between regular attacks and special attacks, to showing you the multiple defensive options you have on defense. The game even has a tutorial for the characters themselves, going over their drive, special attacks, and general strategy. And considering how diverse most of the cast's movesets are, made me glad they added in the tutorial, and it wouldn't surprise me if newcomers to the series would be overwhelmed at the vast amount of information that is presented to you in this mode in order to understand how to play the game. But I personally feel the tutorial does a really good job at breaking down each segment. I don't see this being an issue for those who truly want to learn. And speaking of overwhelming, I'd like to talk about a mode that's just as deep in length to completion. Story mode. BlazBlue Story Mode is presented as a visual novel. For those who are unaware, a visual novel is an interactive game featuring mostly static graphics, mostly using anime-style art and occasional video footage. However, unlike most visual novels, which feature barely moving character portraits on static backgrounds for extended periods of time, BlazBlue Story Mode will try to spice things up, such as moving from one camera angle to the next. In addition, most of the dialogue is fully voiced, further helping keeping the immersion. One of the highlights for me personally is how certain characters go through a particular arc. A good example of this would be the game's protagonist, Ragna. As a youth, Ragna lived with his younger brother and sister, and was raised together by a nun in a church isolated from society. One day on his way home, he finds it up in flames. He is then attacked and left for dead by the person responsible for this heinous act. Ragna survives this encounter and finds the nun who raised him dead and his siblings missing. This would lead Ragna to go on a quest of revenge on the person that ruined his life. And after some intense training by the one who found him after the attack, who also just happens to be one of the most powerful characters in this universe, Ragna sets out to do just that. Because he is so fixated on his goal, he can often be very rude and abrasive to anyone he comes across, mincing very few words unless it has anything to do with his revenge.
How long do you plan on hanging around? What did you say your name was? Noelle?
Oh, yes! I'm sorry.
What's with the apology? You didn't do anything.
I'm sorry.
You don't have anything else to do here, right? You being here is really starting to get on my nerves. Now what?
No, it's nothing. I just thought we could talk for a while.
Why would I waste my breath?
Why do you have to talk that way?
Just go away.
Okay.
Jeez, don't ever come back. Damn it. Why does everyone want to butt into my business? It's really starting to get on my goddamn nerves. What I do is none of their concern.
He's also quick to get into violence from the most inconsequential things, at least in the beginning of the series.
Ugh, this is so frustrating.
Ow! What the hell are you doing, you idiot?
Idiot! You want to fight me, you piece of shit?
What'd you say? Come on back here.
You want me to bust your balls? You come on over here. Come on, get your ass over here so I can break it. Don't complain to me when they're contacting your next of kin.
No, hey, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. I'm sorry, okay? Come on, don't be like that.
What are you afraid of? It's too late to take it back. The hell?
Look at you, reduced to picking on innocents. You've somehow found a place below the bottom of the barrel. Some kind of awful sewer inhabited solely by nematodes like yourself.
How unseemly! Harassing weak people. So unattractive.
Classless and disgraceful.
Rabbit, I don't need your shit right now.
If you're really seeking catharsis through random violence, then I stand by my earlier assessment. I'm quite disappointed in you.
Disappointed? I don't recall you expecting anything from me, so get the hell out of here!
Don't presume to speak to me. I don't need you sullying me.
What a classless child.
Such a child, such a child.
Wait, Rachel... Shit. Why am I so damn frustrated?
However, as Ragna continues on his journey, he meets a multitude of people with different goals and ideologies, and his ideals are often challenged by many of these individuals. As a result of this, Ragna begins to reflect on his core ideals, and by the end of the series has a new outlook on life and how he approaches things. And by the end, Ragna at the beginning of the series is not the same character at the end of the series. And this is just one example of a character that develops throughout the course of this mode. Overall, the story mode will take you well over a dozen hours to complete. For those unfamiliar with the lore up until this point, The developers include a summary of what transpired in the last games, in order to give new players a basic idea of what's going on. In addition, there's Library Mode, which explains the backstory of most of the things in the BlazBlue universe, from characters, factions, and weapons. Arcade mode is a mode where you fight 8 opponents, and an ending once you complete it with that specific character. If you've ever played a fighting game, this may all seem familiar to you. However, BlazBlue's most recent installment, Central Fiction, adds a new twist to this mode, in the fact that each character has 3 acts. Meaning once you've seen your first ending after beating the final opponents in those 8 fights, you'll be rewarded with an FMV sequence, followed by a "to be continued" at the very end of that act, leaving 2 more acts remaining for your character, with each act continuing from the previous ending. Completing all 3 acts with one character takes well over an hour, and with the game having over 35 characters, 33 of those having 3 acts, means it'll take approximately 30 hours to complete that mode alone. And I think it's pretty cool that each character is given more screen time to know more about them outside of story mode. This also extends to the character-specific intros that happens before each fight.
New. It's you.
I'll fold you up so you'll fit in a coffin.
You maniac!
Let us put an end to our ever-intertwining fates.
Masked freak.
If I win, I get to take you to dinner.
You can't just decide!
Consuming her flesh, coconut.
All weapons!
Didn't taste that bad.
Azrael, you...
This is where you die. You are a pain in the ass!
The power of the Azure. Lineage. I will kill you!
So, you're the Black Knight Carter.
Now that's pretty amazing.
Long time no see, Miss Trinity.
Terramy.
I'm gonna make you cry, I swear to God!
I would love to see you try.
Shut your insolent mouth, monster!
Please, just one grow.
You need to die.
I got nothing to say to you. Shut up and die!
These intros help give the game even more personality, and I'm glad it's included in the game. If you're not a fan of the BlazBlue lore, there's still plenty of other modes to keep you busy. Versus mode is the classic mode where players test their skills amongst one another in order to see who's superior.
Distortion finish!
Just don't stand up.
Challenge mode is a mode where you complete a series of challenges, which will have you doing different types of combos with the character of your choice. These challenges crank up in difficulty, but once you complete them, you'll have a good starting point to see what your character is capable of, and see if they're right for you.
Action!
Fall! Fool! Fall! None shall escape! Don't fall! Get out of my throes of ice!
Action!
Score Attack is a mode where you choose your course of opponents to fight in, with settings ranging in difficulty as you fight various opponents, with regulated settings as you compete for the highest score. The calculation for the highest score has many variables, including the amount of damage you take, the length of your combos, and the amount of health you have at the end of each match. And since your final score can be uploaded to rankings, is a fact that will motivate players to compete for the highest score.
Let's go! Time to end this! Overdrive finish! Was that really it?
Speed Star mode is a mode where you defeat all the enemies that appear, as you compete for the quickest completion time. Performing certain actions will increase the maximum completion time, such as dealing massive damage or using special finishers. At the end of each match, you are given an extra amount of time, with the amount based on what actions you took during that match.
Distortion finish!
Come on, this isn't even a fight.
Grim of the Abyss mode is a mode where you fight waves of enemies, strengthening your character along the way as you try to make it to the bottom of a dungeon. Each of the 9 dungeons gets consecutively more difficult as you progress. What separates this mode from other modes is the fact that it feels more like an RPG. For example, before you enter a dungeon, you can equip a grimoire. Each grimoire has a rank, starting with the lowest rank, E. The rank determines both the prospective stat increase you can attain, and it also determines the maximum rank of skills that you can equip on the book. The stats will increase as you gain levels with your grimoire, and you can gain levels by either having your book equipped in battle, or by using items to enhance your book. Each of the dungeons has 100 different levels or depths, Once you reach a depth of 100, you will fight a final boss of that dungeon, and you will typically get a better grimoire for defeating that boss of that dungeon as well. And you'll need all these enhancements for the separate boss rush dungeons. It's very common for these bosses to kill you in 2 to 3 hits if you're under leveled or don't have the right enhancements. Overall, it's a very beefy mode that'll take numerous hours to complete. Gallery mode is where you can unlock movies and illustrations with in-game currency that you have. You gain this currency by progressing through other modes in the game. One thing that I found pretty cool about these illustrations is that they're drawn by different artists, such as Daisuke Ishiwatari from the Guilty Gear series, and I think it's pretty cool to see their take on the characters. You can also use your in-game currency to purchase colors that change the look of the character. And it will definitely take some time for new players to unlock everything in the game. And that about sums up all the modes in the game. And while I mainly focused on Central Fiction, which at the time of this recording is the latest installment in the series, many of these modes apply to the older games as well, such as the in-depth tutorial, which has been with the series almost since the beginning, and the expansive story mode that's been in every mainline title in the series, which will undoubtedly take many hours to complete alone. And that is why I feel if you are a fan of single player content, you should play BlazBlue. And that about wraps up this video. In my next video on this series, I plan on going over Central Fiction's basic system mechanics.